Ooh. Hello? Ooh.
Women Grow is one of the largest brands in the cannabis industry right now. And what we do is we provide people with a
The advancement of cannabis analytical testing.
Now we're on.
And sound-driven pictures. Your
And
pictures,
this is
your
Shaka
sound,
Freeman with the Medical
sound.
Cannabis Report. We are here to really stand for
I'm Josh Crosby,
medicine,
president and founder
science
of J
this
Canna
plant,
and the Cannabis Science
medicine,
Conference. As a
cannabis,
writer and
hemp,
researcher on the subject of
recreational
medical
medicine, and we are also
cannabis,
here
I've
as a
had the
reminder
privilege
that
to
this
meet with
is not a
advocates,
green rush.
medical professionals,
Gold rush
scientists,
is
and
really
community
bad
leaders to
for
help
the
further the
indigenous
science
people.
and
It was
understanding
bad
of cannabis
for
as medicine.
Buffalo. It
As
was
host
bad
of the
for
Medical Cannabis
prospectors
Report, I will
involved. It was
guide you
bad for
through the
land.
current discussions
We are
occurring
here
right now
really to
in
discuss
communities
and to
across
push
the country
concept of
about medical cannabis
conservation,
and its use in
green
treatment.
buffalo medicine.
I had the
Every single
pleasure
part
of
this
sitting down
plant
with groups of
is
advocates,
useful. Every single
patients,
part
and
of this plant
professionals to
can be
moderate this
used, and
series of
something can be
medical
done with
cannabis
it.
table
And we
discussions
are here
and bring you
to
the current state of
bring
medical
that
cannabis.
vibe. Thank you
Our
very
first
much.
series of discussions took place in Maryland, where the state has been working to implement a viable medical cannabis program since
Medical cannabis is fast becoming the subject of much research and even more public debate. It has also resulted in some groundbreaking shifts in how science, the public, and lawmakers are looking at cannabis policy. People all across the country and around the world strive to have meaningful and productive conversations about cannabis. The Medical Cannabis Report presents MedCan Reports Table Discussions 2016, hosted by Josh Crosby. Brought to you by Be More Film. Be more than the film. J Canna, dedicated to the advancement of cannabis analytical testing. And sound-driven pictures. Your pictures, your sound, sound-driven.
I'm Josh Crosby, president and founder of J Canna and the Cannabis Science Conference. As a writer and researcher on the subject of medical cannabis, I've had the privilege to meet with advocates, medical professionals, scientists, and community leaders to help further the science and understanding of cannabis as medicine. As host of the Medical Cannabis Report, I will guide you through the current discussions occurring right now in communities across the country about medical cannabis and its use in treatment. I had the pleasure of sitting down with groups of advocates, patients, and professionals to moderate this series of medical cannabis table discussions and bring you the current state of medical cannabis. Our first series of discussions took place in Maryland, where the state has been working to implement a viable medical cannabis program since 2013. Many feel the delays involved have needlessly prevented patients in the state from accessing real medicine. Representatives of Maryland's Medical Cannabis Commission have come under great scrutiny for the pace and scope of the program, while patients in the state continue to wait and suffer. We invited members of the commission to participate in these discussions, but have yet to hear a response. We will continue to seek their engagement. Many community members, medical professionals, and experts did take us up on our offer to talk about medical cannabis in Maryland. The result of this is our series of table discussions brought to you here on the Medical Cannabis Report. Our first episode features a great group of participants. They include Leah Heiss, CEO of Women Grow, an international membership group which connects, educates, and empowers diverse leaders in all segments of the cannabis industry. Shaka Freeman, founder of Green Buffalo Medicine Consultants, a Washington, D.C. based advocacy and consulting group dedicated to helping adult and pediatric medical cannabis patients. And Jason Weiss, clinical director of LMS Wellness. Jason is a licensed pharmacist and is working with LMS Wellness to dispense medical cannabis in Maryland as well as Pennsylvania. In this first part of our discussion, we talk about some of the aspects of Maryland's proposed program and delve into the subject of edibles for use in treatment. Enjoy.
I think one of the greatest things about Maryland, it has the potential to be one of the largest markets in the United States. It's not limited by actual diagnosis. It's based on symptoms. It also doesn't have a residency requirement, so people that are being treated by doctors in the state of Maryland have the ability to actually get medication here, which is an enormous benefit to somebody who cannot get medication anywhere else because of a residency requirement. What do you guys think?
Well, I think one of the interesting things also about Maryland is that they are using all of the information that's come before, and so they really are attempting to set up a very unique program where instead of deciding for themselves what path to take, they've really paid attention to what's been going on in the other states. And I think that is bringing the possibility of a very unique program here.
In states where this was successful, Leah, I've seen that they've had a very wide number of conditions that they allow cannabis to be recommended for. I think is very important. The prescribers that they will allow to prescribe or recommend, should I say, cannabis is very wide also. It goes to midwives and physicians. So that's very important. The forms which it's available is also very important. We allow all forms except for edibles.
Well, I think edibles is coming. My understanding of the edibles issue is not that they were as concerned with some of the problems that they were having in Colorado with the levels and things like that, but more that it was going to take too long to get the Health and Human Services to do the regulatory requirements for the commercial kitchens. So I think edibles will be coming in the very near future in the Maryland program, which is exciting.
Yes, Lee, I think there's space for them. There was concern in Colorado earlier about making edibles look appealing to children in the form of candy bars that look like Hershey bars and gummy bears, and they wisely removed those from their list of approved edibles.
When I think Maryland also with the sublingual has kind of intelligently skirted that issue where you can still have a delivery system that works as fast or faster than an edible, but avoids any of the appearances of a candy or anything that a child might look at and think, oh, I can eat this.
Well, and that's another thing I think that the community, not just in Maryland or Pennsylvania, but as a whole community, needs to really kind of focus on the future of marketing cannabis products and like how you have to kind of look back to the cigarette industry, how all the ads were very, cool to kids, and it was almost looking like teenagers were smoking cigarettes in the ads. So we got to be careful that we don't get into, turning it into caricatures that kind of look appealing to kids and stuff like that. So we have to kind of solve our own problems before, it comes down on us from the government, and for other reasons, for, like you said, like marketing things that look like a Hershey bar or a Reese's peanut butter cup, and it looks pretty similar.
Yeah, Josh, the last thing we want is the government involved in the industry anymore, and edibles kind of edibles gives them a door to do that. I think in the future we'll see more acceptable forms that you may even see in your local pharmacy, such as a meter dose inhaler, which other gentlemen who will speak later will speak more to, or capsules and tinctures. I think they'll become more standardized, where healthcare professionals will feel more comfortable recommending them.
Well, and the thing is, like, a lot of people, don't really dose, like, medically with just edibles. Even like you talk about children, like most people think, oh, that'd be great, kids can eat candy. But no, it's like most kids are on, tinctures or oils, like you were saying.
Right.
And, maybe as a snack throughout the day, every once in a while, they'll get a little edible something to go with their medicine. But it's not like they're taking gummy bears morning, noon, and night for their cannabis treatments. It's like you don't, that's more of a recreational thing. If you, when you have access to tinctures and oils and sublinguals and eventually vaporizers, I think, eating edible candies and stuff, I mean, it's always been associated with, the pot brownie and stuff like that. It's kind of a, more of a recreational thing.
Well, and to build on his point, one of the very interesting things too, Josh, is that in this industry, one of the things that I've noticed in my experience is that we are defining this. We are the ones that are creating the idea of what the market is. And in doing that, information that's already been out there has been gathered. So my organization, we mainly work with children. So up until, as he mentioned, the conversation that I had with some gentlemen that are going to be featured later on this program with the nebulizers, one of the routes of administration we've been using is putting oil on the feet of infants. Because with children, we're dealing with a whole different level of what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and our biggest challenge with that has been, how do you administer it?
Right.
And so that's where we're also finding that we don't need to advertise. Parents know if your child's sick and they hear from another parent that this works, parents are going to go straight for what works, and they're not necessarily going to dilly-dally and try and figure out what the recreational users are using. So that's where we're really beginning to find this sort of melding of two worlds.
Well, our organization also works really closely with a lot of children's organizations and a lot of kids that are going through things and are cannabis patients. And I always find it interesting that so many people are just like so taken back that like kids are using cannabis and more than just CBD, but they have no kind of pause with the fact that they're being pumped full of like tons and tons of dangerous narcotics. And you know, obviously I'm a firm believer in using cannabis in conjunction with, you know, Western medicine and treatments. I never suggest to people not to listen to a doctor. At the end of the day, if you're not comfortable with what your doctor's telling you, you can always get a second opinion at another doctor. But you know, if your doctor's not on board with cannabis as well as their treatments, you can find a doctor that is. But
we need to educate the doctors
that's another big
to
problem.
get on board. The lack of education in the medical community as far as cannabis is concerned is just atrocious.
It's appalling.
What ways do you see that issue kind of working itself out in Maryland? Do you see any operations or programs to train these medical physicians or doctors, clinicians?
I know that the commission initially did some grand rounds with a couple of the hospitals, the main hospitals, to try to get some of the hospitals on board. But to my knowledge, there aren't a lot of hospitals that are on board and allowing their doctors to make recommendations. In fact, my daughter is an epilepsy patient, and I asked her epilepsy specialist at Hopkins whether they were going to be allowed to prescribe cannabis, and she flat out said no, which is, you know, incredibly unfortunate. Now, my pancreatic specialist is opening a lab in Maryland, and he knows that cannabis is a valuable source for someone that's in pain medicine. So, you know, it's a big challenge, and I think that organizations are going to have to really do a lot of grassroots efforts to create education for doctors, for nurses. It needs to be added to curriculums of law schools, medical schools, nursing schools, pharmacy schools.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Leah. I think the future 5-10 years down the road will have actual courses that are approved by the state and maybe even on a federal level, whereby pharmacists and physicians have this training in college before they even get out here. As far as pharmacists and physicians who are already practicing, what would really help here is if they loosen the research restrictions here in the United States, and that's really what healthcare professionals look for. They look for standardized dosing, and right now, from batch to batch, it is difficult to reproduce, but it can be done. Other countries are doing it. They're much further ahead of us. Whether our physicians and pharmacists here in this country, healthcare professionals, accept other countries' advances, that remains to be seen. The DEA just allowed some more research to be performed here recently in a decision they made. That will help, but it's very slow going.
Sure.
And we're talking in the realm of 5 to 10 years.
Right. Awesome. Well, it's been great chatting with you guys so far, and
Thanks,
we'll be right
Josh.
back. Hi, I'm Josh Crosney, President and Founder of J. Canna and the Cannabis Science Conference. I invite you all to attend our 2016 Cannabis Science Conference this October 5th and 6th in Portland, Oregon at the Red Lion on the River. We will feature 71 sponsor and exhibitor booths and over 30 expert presenters from the fields of medicine, science, lab testing, and cultivation. Our plenary speaker, Tracy Ryan, CEO and founder of Canna Kids and SavingSophie.org, will present her abstract, From Diagnosis to Discovery, A Mom's Fight to Save the Sick. Her daughter, Sophie Ryan, was diagnosed with brain cancer at only 8.5 months old. Tracy's personal connection to this industry is truly inspiring. Come meet Tracy and hear her amazing story at our 2016 Cannabis Science Conference. To view our full technical agenda, please visit CannabisScienceConference.com. And to learn more about our nonprofit, JCanna, please join us at jcanna.com. Thank you. Now that we're back, maybe we could touch about the research a little bit more and how in Maryland there's not really any way for any of the hospitals to get cannabis to research. Because with the seed-to-sale tracking system, every bit has to go to a patient that's grown. So what are some ways that you could maybe see that changing, or in other states you've seen them open to doing other things? So what do you guys think about that?
What's going on in DC?
Well, in DC, it's a unique situation where they are not required to test. None of the dispensaries or the grow spots are. They do, but they're not required to, and so that has created a sort of a vacuum there where we're not really sure where they're going to take that or where that's going to go. And I'm sort of hoping and counting on Maryland being a little bit more responsible with that. But again, as probably both of you can attest, this also goes to a higher level, which is until the government actually allows us to do research, we're sort of like states' rights versus federal rights, where we're trying to help our citizens, but we're also at the same time trying to at least stay within some sort of guidelines that haven't been given.
Right. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate because we have such great institutions here like Johns Hopkins and University of Maryland. NIH and NIDA are so close. So it's kind of like, it almost feels like a missed opportunity that these people are not getting involved. And some of them are only studying the adverse effects of cannabis. So.
And Josh, teaching institutions would love to get involved in cannabis research, I believe, but they risk their federal funding when they get involved in something that is legal on a federal level. Pennsylvania is looking forward to this, and what they are instituting there is they are making 8 vertically integrated licenses available in order to perform research. But still, those institutions will have to sign on to those vertical medical licenses. By vertical integration, I mean cultivation, processing, and dispensing, all 3 operations. So it's a closed system, and they can monitor and get better results from that. They still risk their federal funding if they get involved.
It sounds kind of similar, not the whole program in Pennsylvania, but that aspect of it, to what we were trying to do here in 2011 with Hopkins and University of Maryland. It was supposed to be set up as like a research program, and then a lot of patients and people thought they were going to get access, and then that just never ended up happening. So then, we waited until 2013 where we legalized it, and here we are in 2016, and it'll be 2017 before we know it, and we're still waiting for the implemented program. So
I think we're going to be waiting quite some time. Maryland has some significant hurdles it has to overcome before we see some medication on the ground, and it's incredibly unfortunate. One of the hurdles is they're about to get sued by the Congressional Black Caucus because of the lack of diversity in the providing of the licenses.
Well, and that was in the language of the program that they should take really into consideration groups of diversity for these applications.
It was, and then before the licensing came out, the Maryland Attorney General wrote an opinion that said you could not take racial diversity or other types of diversity into consideration, that the only type of diversity that was allowed to be considered was geographic. So,
which is interesting because if you think about a lot of the groups that won, a lot of the people that won look almost the same to each other in the kind of background, ethnicity, and things like that. So it's like can you in one way but not in another way. When it comes to that?
Right. Well, it raises an interesting social and moral argument with damaging the very people that have been so harmed by the drug war, and having the inability to actually get into an industry that can make a difference. And it can make a difference. This plant can change the world if we allow it and we do it correctly.
Well, one of the things I wanted to piggyback on both your points with the medical testing is that my organization has always held the philosophy that get a foot in the door and it's a start. And so a lot of the work that was done by some of the lobbyists before were parents who were doing it not for money, but to help their kids. And one of the things that I think really helped get this program running in our country was the idea of going to states that had really harsh laws and pushing for limited medical. Because you can't say no to kids. You just can't. That's like the one saving grace in all this. And I think that, and one of the things that some of the people I'm working with that we're going to be looking at is, since they did reschedule hemp, and since if it's below 5% wet THC, that has been rescheduled, we are attempting to take hemp and try and move through that door because there aren't the limits on the scheduling. And if we can find a university to work with that will back our research, again, that might be the foot in the door that then later on people sit back and say, well, if they did it with medical hemp, why can't we do it with, higher cannabinoid THC profiled plants?
It's just hard, like when you talk about something like that, because hemp CBD and low THC can be really beneficial, but for lots of different conditions, it calls for different levels of cannabinoids and different cannabinoids.
Right.
So that's another reason why lab testing is so important, because if you're trying to treat autism or brain cancer or epilepsy, to have those accurately kind of dispensed is really important. Stick around for more of our talk coming up next.
Brought to you by Be More Film. Be more than the film. Jay Canna, dedicated to the advancement of cannabis analytical testing. And Sound Driven Pictures. Your pictures, your sound, sound driven. Science and opinion have converged on medical cannabis. In Maryland, this means the dawn of a bold and fascinating new industry. The Medical Cannabis Report is dedicated to bringing you the most up-to-date and accurate information about the progress of Maryland's medical cannabis program and the industry growing to support it. This weekly video broadcast will provide information about the laws, the health, and the culture surrounding medical cannabis. The MedCan Report will introduce you to those who hope to secure licenses in Maryland to provide medical cannabis. We will bring to your screen stories of those who benefit from medical cannabis, as well as those who hope to when available. We will talk to doctors and pharmacists about the health risks and benefits of medical cannabis and other conventional treatments. We will give you the news, the information, the facts about medical cannabis in Maryland. The Medical Cannabis Report of Maryland, showing you the science and industry of medical cannabis.
When you think about it, and it ties back to earlier when we were saying people are okay with pumping kids full of pharmaceuticals and things like chemo and radiology, but when it comes to a natural plant medicine, it's a big deal, and it's so controversial, so.
It's very unfortunate.
Well, yeah, it's a big challenge, and I think the LGBT community was really kind of like, they laid the foundation for this, because people, when you love whoever you love, you want to see whatever, you want to help them in any way possible. And so I think in their kind of like groundwork, they've really created the notion that not only does this medicine work, but all you need is, again, a foot in the door. And if you can show with one, because one of the big problems we're finding with children is, okay, so everyone was fine with us treating seizures and really drastic medical conditions, but now we're finding that it's working wonders for autism. But autism as a spectrum is even so hard to I mean, it's literally like cannabis. It's still, the research is still ongoing. So now we're starting to enter into, well, okay, if this person is HIV positive and their T cell count is this low, you can give it to them. But if they've just kind of got wasting syndromes, then that's not as that's not as crucial. But if you have wasting syndrome and you don't eat in 3 days, you die. So we're really finding that if we can educate people that there are certain conditions that can be helped that are major. And I'm not saying for any parent that has an autistic kid, it's a minor thing. I'm not saying that at all. But according to the stipulations and the laws, autism is a little more minor. Well, maybe we can then begin to treat those
than cancer or other
cancer.
Yeah, I think grabbing the low-hanging fruit, that's a good strategy.
Sure.
Well, I feel like if cannabis is beneficial to a
Good way of
person
putting
that's
it.
sick, then we should let them use it if it's medically legal in their state. It's like
I agree.
if you, it's because it's like you're just going to give them another pharmaceutical for either pain, anxiety, depression. So why not give natural medicine a go before you go down that road?
Yeah.
And we have a huge opiate problem in the United States.
It's really bad.
Huge. I mean, and in Maryland in particular. I
Yeah.
mean, we have people dying every day because they're overdosing on opiates that doctors are prescribing them on a regular basis. I have a headache. Here's your, Oxy for your tooth that just got pulled.
For things that cannabis could help,
Absolutely.
Yes, Lee, I'm on the front lines in that battle against the prescribing and the
imagine.
overprescribing of oxycodone. I believe we've probably had over 200 deaths in Maryland so far this year from overdose on oxycodone. In states where oxycodone has ravaged, wherever they have a medicinal cannabis program, there have been 20% fewer deaths from opioids. So people are substituting something or coming off of deadly levels of opiates and reducing their total daily intake, and it's resulting in better survival rates.
So getting back to Maryland and the way things are going here, what kind of timeline do you guys envision going forward? So if you had to say, when would you envision a program that would be open to patients to get medicine in Maryland?
I think it's going to be years.
Yeah.
My guess is several years. We don't have an RFP out for inspectors yet. We don't have any guidelines for inspections for them to certify whether or not the grows are sufficient. We don't have any infrastructure built in terms of the seed to sale tracking system. There's a lot of hurdles.
So far, we've seen so many delays. We're out of the 24 programs that have been rolled out nationwide. We were the third slowest last I heard, and we're going for second. So
We'll be number one for sure.
we'll be number one, and to expect more delays, we should anticipate that.
Well, and it's pretty interesting that they didn't do the background checks before they issued the winners of the licenses. But I guess that's it for now, guys. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks,
And,
Josh.
As you can see, medical cannabis offers great promise. Maryland is poised to have one of the most robust medical cannabis programs in the nation, but has suffered many setbacks and delays over the course. The opportunity for real change in policy, accompanied by real help to patients, creates an environment where many passionate and dedicated people are working to increase awareness and interest in medical cannabis. The promise of new medicine for devastating illnesses in adults and children is a strong motivator, but 70 plus years of prohibition and fear can be difficult to overcome. Please join us for our next episode of MedCan Report Table Discussions as we invite more experts, advocates, and patients to the conversation. I'm Josh Crosney. Thanks for watching.
Brought to you by Be More Film. Be more than the film. J. Canna, dedicated to the advancement of cannabis analytical testing. And Sound Driven Pictures. Your pictures, your sound, sound driven. The Medical Cannabis Report would also like to thank Smoke. Can you taste that hickory smoke goodness? And Shocker's Smoke Shop. Hand blown and custom glass for all your needs.
Eureka Vapor, established in 2011, is a leading cannabis oil vape pen. Available in over 200 locations across California and Colorado, and a net social reach of 30,000 people across all major platforms, Eureka Vapor's popularity is growing at a rapid speed. Awarded Best CO2 Concentrate in 2015, and named award-winning oil at High Times 2016 and HempCon 2016, the Eureka Vapor quality is proven to be top-notch, known as the way medicine should be. To see more about the Eureka Vapor quality and mission, visit eurekavapor.com. Eureka Vapor, established in 2011, is a leading cannabis oil vape pen. Available in over 200 locations across California and Colorado, and a net social reach